So if user wants to extract the data simultaneously from more than one table. Now, if you want to fetch the data from a single table, we know already how to fetch the data. So with the help of select statement. So as a part of work area, internal table, table type structure, we have seen the many example. So if you want to fetch the data from multiple, maybe two or more than two table simultaneously, then we need to go with the inner join, which we have already discussed. But this join is a concept of SQL. So with the help of join, you can join two or more than two table. But again, in the join, we do have the multiple type, inner, left, right, and the full. But in SAP ABAP, we are not working with the left, right, and the full. We always work on the inner join. But this is SQL concept. SAP has also come up with its own concept to join two or more than two tables in real time. Alternative to the inner join is for all entries. So join is a concept of SQL, and within the join we do have many types. So in that we are using inner join to join two or more than two table. With this it will get the common data, matchable data. So join is a part of SQL concept. So alternative to the inner join, SAP has come up with its own concept called for all entry. Even this for all entry will be used to join. It will be used to join two or more than two table in real time. Even whenever we join the two table with the help of for all entry, it will also get the common data. It will fetch, I can say common or matchable data between the two table. Same like inner join. This is just a alternative to your inner join. In that case, now you can ask me in the real time, either we need to use the inner join or the for all entry. It is totally depends upon your requirement and the volume of data. But if you ask me to differentiate between these two, see, in real time, along with the development, we need to take care about the performance. We need to be sure about the performance. So your performance should be balanced. It doesn't mean that if you develop the program, you're getting the correct output, but if it's taking a longer time, then no use. Your performance and your development both should be balanced. And to improve the performance, to balance the performance of your program, there are many points. It is not really depends on one or two points. Now, for example, to fit or a healthy life of any person XYZ, then it is not really depends upon his one or two activity. There are many routine he or she need to follow on day-to-day basis, like getting up early, going to the bed early, having enough water in a day, like have the food on timely, avoid the junk food, at least walk 10,000 steps in a day. There are many things. There are many things. It is not really matters on one or two points. Similarly, improve the performance or balance the performance of your program, and there are many points. So one of the point is what? See, whatever the time we are spending to extract the data, sometimes your performance will be decreased based on the fetching, how you're fetching the data from the database. Now, if you want me to compare between inner join and the for all entry always better than inner join. Because with the help of inner join, it will add the load on the database. Adding the load on the database is nothing but performance is going to be decreased. Now, how in terms of how it is going to add the load on the database, let's see the difference. So I will take an example. So as a part of flow, we have taken the inner join example. Now in this example, I will take the ST flow table. Now again, don't confuse. If the requirement is related to the we need to go with the inner join. If it is a ST, we need to go with the for all entry. Doesn't matter. It is a totally independent. Irrespective of any business flow, totally depends upon the code, the data, again, the volume of data is very important. Sometimes your volume of data is very high. If your volume of data is very high, then inner join always be a issue. So go with the for all entry. So my like if I ask me to like suggestion which one I should prefer, then for all entries always a better than inner join. So let's assume I do have two tables. Now you already know how to fetch the data from single table. Now this time we will go with the multiple table. Okay. So this is my table. In that I do have the fields, Kunnar, land 1, name 1, ORT01, PSTLZ, maybe more than that. Maybe you do have 100 fields in this table, but I don't want all the fields. I need only required fields. Okay, this is my table, KNA1. This is a part of your customer master data. Like as a part of sales, we discussed about the different table. So I want to work with Kunnar and the VBAK. I'm taking these two, KNA1 and the VBAK. In these two tables, we do have the primary and the foreign key relationship. So I'm taking two tables. Now similarly, so this is my second table. VBAK. In that, I do have the fields, like Weblin, nothing but sales document number, ERRAT, nothing but order creation date, then comes with VKORG, nothing but sales organization, NETWR, nothing but total amount, and in that you do have the Kunnar as a foreign key. Now there is a relationship between these two tables, primary and the foreign key. So in this table, Kunnar is a primary, and in this table, Kunnar is a foreign key. Primary, foreign. Now the requirement is what? Now in this table, we do have some set of data like 1000, 1001, 2, 3, maybe so on, 4. And against these customer, we do have some sales order in this table. Okay, 4167, 9203, 5409, 6203, 5949. So these are the set of some orders belongs to those customer. Now what user wanted to do, instead of checking the data at the database level, he want these two data in common output list. User is expecting he want these two data in common output list. So as per his requirement, this is my final table. So as per the requirement, this is the final table. In that, the fields are Kunnar, land 1, name 1. These three fields from the first table, KNA1. Next, Weblin, Eredat, network. So next three fields from the second table. So this should be my final output list. Kunnar, land 1, name 1, Weblin, Eredat, and the network. Okay, this is my IT underscore final. So these three fields from KNA1 and these three from the VBAK. He want the output in common output list. Now, if you want to achieve this job with the help of inner join, already we have discussed about the inner join, then what would be my statement? So if you want to work with the inner join, your statement will be like select KNA1 Kunnar, land 1, name 1, Weblin, Eredat, network. So the difference is with the tilt symbol. So this is a part of tilt symbol. So whenever you're working with the inner join, this is a symbol we need to use, tilt symbol. The table name, the tilt symbol, field name. That is how we are going to represent during the inner join case. So here from KNA1 will be inner join with VBAK on KNA1 Kunnar should equals to VBAK Kunnar. Then we need to say into table, your internal table is IT final. And if you do have any where condition, you can pass it. Where condition. Okay. These are the part of tilt symbol. So if you want to achieve this job by using the inner join, this will be your statement. But here we are using the for all entry to bring the data from these two tables into my final output. See, whenever you're working with the inner join, the data will be compared at two database level. See, this is a table 1 and this is a table 2. So your data will be compared at the database level. Whenever you are working with inner join, the data will be compared at database level and system will bring the data to final. Whenever you are trying to work with the inner join, see, with the same select statement, he is visiting both the table. The same select statement, it is visiting both the table at the same time, KNA1 as well as the VBAK. The same select statement, it is visiting the table at the same time, both the table at the same time, by comparing these two fields. So this is the relationship between these two tables. In first table, KNA1 is a primary, Kunnar is a primary. In second table, Kunnar is a foreign key. So it is being compared. Now let's assume in your first table, you do have 100 record. I'm just taking a scenario. Let's assume in first table, you do have total 100 customer. And for these 100 customer, you do have total 10,000 order. But I'm not sure which customer is having what number of sales order. I'm taking a total count. I do have total 100 customer register in my table called KNA1. For these customer, I do have total 10,000 order. I'm not sure which customer is having how much order. Maybe some customer don't have any order. But still system will search the Kunnar from KNA1 with Kunnar from VBAK. Because here we have written this statement. On KNA1 Kunnar equals to VBA. He will compare each and every row of KNA1 Kunnar with each and every row of VBAK Kunnar. He will get the matchable. What is the definition of inner join? It will get the matchable entry. If the data is getting matched, he will pull the data into final. So your result will comes to this final table. But here we are not working with the inner join. But if you are using the inner join, what system, like what is the comparison ratio? So you do have total 100 customer in the first table with the corresponding, in the second table, you do have total 10,000 sales order. And when you are comparing each and every customer of first table with the each and every customer of the second table, so your comparison ratio will becomes 10 lakh times. Your total comparison ratio, this is a total comparison ratio. So it is total 10 lakh times it is being compared. It is comparing each and every record of KNA1 Kunnar with each and every record of VBAK Kunnar. But I'm not sure which customer is having how much orders, but still it is going to compare one by one row. And your total final comparison ratio will be 10 lakh times. Right? Now, so this is the during the inner join. Now, if I go with the for all entry, what will be my approach? Inner join, it will compare the database table at the database level only and get the data into final. But if you go with the for all entry, if I go with the for all entry, how it will work? Now here we can see when you are working with the for all entry, so what we need to do is we need to create one internal table. So this is my internal table, IT underscore. So we this time with the help of for all entry, we are not comparing the two database table at the database level. No, we will focus one by one. First, we will pick the first database table and we will bring the data into respective its internal table. So what I did, I have created one internal table in the name of IT underscore KNA1. Now from KNA1, how many columns you needed? Now, as per the requirement, from the KNA1, how many columns needed? 3. Kunnar, Land1 and Name1. Accordingly, I have created one internal table with the 3 fields, Kunnar, Land1 and the Name1. Now, first what we need to do? We need to bring the data from KNA1 into respective internal table. So here you can see, select Kunnar, Land1, Name1 from KNA1 into table IT underscore KNA1, where if you do have any condition, let's assume I do have some condition. Let's assume I do have a selection screen. In that, I'm passing the customer number. Okay. I'm passing the customer number between 1000 to 1010. Let's assume. So your condition will be where Kunnar in S underscore Kunnar. Kunnar in S underscore Kunnar. Let's assume. So inner join, we are fetching the data together at the same time with the same select statement. But for all entry, it will always focus one by one. First, it will get the data from first database table into the respective internal table. Now, as per this selection screen input, now what was the total count in the KNA1? 100. So as per the input, now how much count we have received in this internal table? Only 10. Only 10. Now, earlier, with the help of inner join, we were comparing the two database table directly. Now we are not comparing two database table directly. Instead, we are comparing this internal table with this second database table. Now, instead of comparing the database table directly, now this time we are comparing sorry, we are comparing IT underscore KNA1 with VBAK. With the help of inner join, we are comparing KNA1 and the VBAK directly. Now, when you are working with the for all entries, we are fetching the data from KNA1 first into the internal table IT underscore KNA1, and this IT underscore KNA we are comparing with second database table. Why? See, already the data is getting filtered from this KNA1 into IT underscore KNA1, and then we are comparing with this IT underscore KNA1 with the VBAK. After comparing, the resultant value will be received in after comparing. Okay. Now what we are going to do? We are not fetching all the columns. So this is your network and the Kunnar. So your Kunnar is 1000. Like this. Now what we are doing, instead of comparing the two database table directly, first we are fetching the data from KNA1 into IT underscore KNA1. Now this IT underscore KNA1 we are comparing with the VBAK, and after comparing we are bringing the data into IT underscore VBAK. Now this is a zigzag movement is going on. Now we are not directly comparing. Okay, so after comparing, your data will comes to IT underscore VBAK. IT underscore VBAK. IT underscore VBAK. Now you can ask me why you are going with the lengthy way. See, when you are going with the inner join, so in the first table you do have total 100 customer registered, and in the second table you do have total 10,000 entries. So what inner join will do, he will compare the entries at the database level only. If although you are written this s underscore kunnar like 1000 to 1010, but your data in the database is not in sorted format, it is always shuffle. So he need to compare with each and every row of first table with each and every row of second table. So your total comparison ratio will become this one. But this is very bad idea, bad thing. Now that's the reason we are going with this alternative way called for all entry. So first we are fetching the data from first table into respective internal table. Now instead of comparing this table directly with the second table, we are comparing this internal table with the second table. Why? We are already filtering the data. Can you see? We have already filtered the data. So there are total 100 record, but now we need to compare only 10 entries. Now this 10 entries going to be compared with 10,000. Now what is your comparison ratio you can see? So your 10 into 10,000. What is the total comparison ratio? Now you can see this is 10 lakh and this is sirf 1 lakh. How much? 9 times your performance is going to be improved. 9 times your performance is going to be improved. So that's the reason we can say for all entries always useful, advantage over the inner join, right? So now you do have 10 entry here. Now this 10 entries is going to be compared with 10,000. So it will becomes 1 lakh time. This is 10 lakh times when you are going with the inner join. Now it is reduced to 1 lakh time. Almost 9 lakh times your performance is going to be improved. Now how to achieve this one? Select Weblin, Eredat, Network and the Kunnar. From where? VBAK. Into where? IT underscore VBAK. You know, we are extracting the data from this VBAK into IT underscore VBAK. Based on what? By comparing the entries with IT underscore KNA1. Now in the IT underscore KNA1, you do have 3 column. Exactly which column of IT underscore KNA1 is being compared with VBAK. So I want to compare IT underscore KNA1 Kunnar column with VBAK Kunnar column. And I want to get the matchable entry. Now how to achieve this logically? So we are saying that while fetching the data from VBAK into IT underscore VBAK, please compare the entries with, that is a part of for all entries in. I don't want to bring all the data. I want to bring only those customer which we have already received in IT underscore KNA1. In IT underscore KNA1. Now in the IT underscore KNA1, how many columns you do have? 3 column. Exactly which column you want to compare? I want to compare this Kunnar column with, I want to compare this IT underscore KN1 Kunnar column with VBAK Kunnar. So here we can see where. So this left hand side field always will be the part of this from. Under the from, whatever the table you are writing, so that field will belongs to that table. Means this field is belongs to VBAK. And this VBAK Kunnar must be compared with IT underscore KN1. If you do have any other condition, you can write other and condition. But do you know one thing? Do you know one thing? So what we are writing this select statement, what is the purpose? To get the data from VBAK into IT underscore VBAK. Based on what? Comparing the entries with KN1. Now what if after executing this first select statement, there are no any customer. Suppose this internal table is empty. Based on the selection screen, you didn't find any customer. Then what will happen? If you don't find any entry in the IT underscore KN1, then what's the point to compare with the VBAK? No point. So the thing is that you should compare with the second table only when if you receive the entries in first table. Getting my point? You should compare the entry with the first table only when if you receive the entry sum. Suppose if you have not received any entry in the first table, then what's the point to get the entry from the second table? And of course, there is no any data to compare, right? So if you want to achieve this part logically, so we need to say that before writing this if statement, we need to say that if IT underscore v kn1 is not initial. The meaning of, see, this is the IT underscore kn1 data which you are fetching after executing the first select statement. So we wanted to execute this second select statement. We wanted to execute this second select statement only when if we received any entry in the first internal table. We wanted to fetch the data from the second table only when if we received any entry in this first internal table, this one. Suppose this first internal table is empty, then there is no any point to compare with the second table. So we wanted to get the entry from the second table only when if we receive the entries in a first table. And if you want to achieve that part technically, then this is a syntax. If it underscore kn1 is not initial. Not means, of course, if it is not, initial means empty. Initial means empty. Not empty means, sorry, not initial means not empty. Of course, if it is not initial means it contains some data. It will proceed to fetch the data from the VBAK only when it contains some data. If it is totally empty, then it will not fetch the data. So that is a part of end if. Getting my point? So we wanted to fetch the data from VBAK only when if we received any entry from the first table. If your first internal table is empty, then your if condition will get fail and it will not able to execute the select statement. Now suppose there is a third table. Now let's assume you want to fetch the data from the third table. Now whenever you're working with the inner join or the foreign entry, make sure that you should have the primary and the foreign key relationship between those two tables. If you don't have any relationship between those two tables, then there is no any point or you will not get the data to compare the table. Okay. Now let's assume you do have the third table. Now with the help of foreign entry, I want to fetch the data. So before you fetch the data from this table, you need to make sure that to which this table is holding the relationship. Either to this VBAK table it is holding the relation or to this Kenyon table is holding the relation. Accordingly, you need to compare the internal table like for all entries in this option. and then you need to fetch the data, right? So always make sure that before we compare the data or before we get the data, you should have the relationship between the two tables, right? But if you look at over here, my data is in two different internal table. So one data is in this IT underscore KN1 and another data is in IT underscore VBAK. But how user is expecting, he want the data into final. It means we need to move the data from this internal table to this and this internal table to this. Now, there is an important point for you. You can copy the data from one internal table to another internal table. Now, how to copy? So to make a copy, you should write it as IT underscore KNA1, sorry, IT underscore final is equals to IT underscore KNA1. Or you can say that move IT underscore KNA1 to IT underscore VBAK. So with this, sorry, IT underscore final. So with this, your data will be copied from IT underscore KNA1 to VBAK, IT underscore final. Similarly, with this also, your data will be copied from IT underscore KNA1 to final. This is to copy the data from one internal table to another internal table. But there is a prerequisite. There is a condition. What condition? Your source internal table and the target internal table must have same number of column. When you want to copy the data from one internal table to another internal table, the condition is the prerequisite as the source and the target internal table must be having same number of column with the same sequence. Now in the IT underscore KNA1, what are the columns? Kunna, land one, name one, 3 columns. And in the final, 6 column, including Weblin, ADAT and the network. So it is not possible. You cannot copy the data from one internal to another. Similarly, if you look at this VBAK, even this also you can copy. IT underscore VBAK, move IT underscore VBAK to IT final. But prerequisite is what? You should have the same number of column. But here the column numbers are not same. Okay. So then what's the solution for this? So within the move, there are two ways. One with simply move. If the number of columns are mismatched between the source to and target. Now let's assume the number of columns are mismatched. Now as I told you that in IT underscore KN1, I do have only 3 columns and the final I do have the 6 column. Then we need to say that move corresponding. Move corresponding IT underscore KN1 to IT underscore final. This you can do. But even you do this move corresponding IT underscore KN1 into IT underscore final. Suppose this is a 4 entry. So 1, 2, 3, 4 entry will be stored. Now in the same way, if we say move corresponding IT underscore VBK to IT underscore final, so remaining data will be stored after in the row format. But I don't want to fill in this way. I want to store in parallel. You know, here it is a Kunnar, land one, name one. The respective order number, date, and the amount should come here, not in the next row. So this is not possible. Then what is the solution? If the number of columns are mismatched between your two internal table, then you need to go with, there is a different approach. So what you need to do is, you need to create the respective work area. One work area of your KNA1, one work area of VBAK, and the one work area of final. If the number of columns are mismatched between the two different internal table, then you need to go in this way. This is work area underscore VBAK, work area underscore KN1. Already we discussed, if your data is in internal table and if you want to bring the data to your work area, how to do? We do have two different way. Either you can go with loop and loop or you can go with the read table. So you need to bring the data from internal table to work area. And whenever you work with this, it will work with the FIFO, first in, first out. Now, what is the first record in the IT underscore KNA1? 1000. So 1000 will comes to this work area. Now, once you receive the data into your work area called work area underscore final, that data you need to move to work area final. So to move the data from one work area to another work area, we use the move keyword. So here we are using the loop. Here we are using the loop, right? So now you can see here. Now we are applying the loop on first internal table. Loop at IT underscore KNA1 into work area underscore KNA1. So it will go with first in, first out. First record will comes to the work area. Now from here, we need to move the data. Move work area underscore KNA1 hyphen kunnar to work area underscore final hyphen kunnar. So we need to move column to column, comma, work area underscore KNA1 hyphen land1 final hyphen land1. And then work area underscore KNA1 hyphen name1 to work area underscore final hyphen name1. So with this, your data will come here. Now in the same way, we need to bring the data from IT VBAK into work area VBAK, and from there we need to bring the data here. Again, you need to use the move keyword if you want to move the data from one work area to another work area. But before that, we need to bring the data from IT VBAK into work area VBAK. Now, if you want to bring the data from internal table to work area, I told you that there are two different ways. One with the loop and loop, another with the read table. Now, what loop end will do? It will get all the record one by one from internal table to work area. Whereas read, among the rows, it will take only one row. Now, however, on first internal table, I need to go with the loop only because I need to bring all the sales order of all the customer. So I have written the loop on the first internal table. Now you can ask me, from the second internal table, do I need to write the loop or do I need to use a read table? Now you do let me know. For example, for the customer called 1000, how many orders are there? 2. Do you want to read one by one all the orders? If yes, then go with the loop. Now if you are saying that no, for one customer, only one order is enough, then go with the read table. But here I need all, so I'm going with the loop. But here the thing is that you are writing this loop and this loop is dependent on the first loop. You're writing the loop on the second table IT underscore VBAK because even while fetching the data from VBAK into IT underscore VBAK, this data is dependent on the first internal table. In the same way, while combining also, you need to write the dependent loop. So it means the second loop needs to be written on the under the first loop only, like this way. I have not concluded with the end loop. Instead, within that, I'm writing another loop. Loop at IT underscore VBAK into work area underscore VBAK. But you should not, whenever you are writing any dependent loop, don't write in a generic way. So only writing loop at internal table into work area, it is a generic way. But whenever you are writing the dependent loop, now I am writing the loop on internal table VBAK into work area. It means it will bring the sales order to the work area. But the thing is that so whenever we write the loop, it will go with the first in, first out. Now here, what is the first record? 1002. And here, what record we have extracted? 1001. Suppose if I return the generic way of loop, here it will comes with 1002 with 4167. It is wrong, right? You are combining someone else order with some other customer. That should not be happen. So while looping the data from second internal table, we need to write the where condition. What kind of where condition? Please bring the, like here we need to say, where Kunnar is equals to work area underscore kn1 hyphen Kunnar. It means please bring the row to the respective work area by comparing the Kunnar of VBAK with Kunnar of this work area. Now in this work area, whatever the Kunnar we have received, please bring that Kunnar only. Otherwise, you are combining someone else order with some other customer. So while whenever you write the dependent loop, there must be where condition. Now we are moving the data from work area underscore final hyphen weblin equals to work area underscore VBAK weblin. Then work area underscore final errordat VBAK errordat. Then network. See, you can write two different types of move condition. So here I have written first move condition. With this, your data will be flow from left to right. Your data is moving from your work area K1 to work area final. Even this is also part of move only. Even this is also part of move only. But with this move, your data will be flow from right to left. Ultimately, your data is going to final only. It doesn't mean that for the first loop, we need to go with this kind of move. For the second loop, this, no. You can go in any kind of, it's totally up to you. Now, your data is being moved from work area underscore VBAK to work area underscore, sorry, IT underscore VBAK to work area underscore VBAK. From there, we need to move the data to final. So we need to say that 9203 network. Now we have collected this data. Now we need to bring this data. Now once we combine the data into final work area, we need to bring this data to internal table. Why? Because we need to read the other customers as well. You know, if you want to bring the data from internal table to work area, what we have used? Loop. If you want to bring the data from internal table to work area, we go with the loop. Similarly, if you want to bring the data from one work area to another work area, we go with move. In the same way, if you want to bring the data from work area to internal, if you want to go with internal table to work area, loop. But in reverse, work area to internal table, we need to go with append. So these are the part of database internal table operations. Loop, move, append. In future, we can come up with the modify, so on. Okay. So we have combined the data into final. From there, to IT final. So this loop is going to be concluded with end loop. Even this loop will also be concluded with end loop. Okay, like this. So your data will come here. 1000 9203. Now what system will do? It will come to this loop again. It will never directly go to the main loop. It will comes to the this loop it underscore VBAK. Loop means what? Bring the data one by one from internal table to work area. It means the system will come back to this internal table again. Do we have any other sales order against 1000? Yes, we do have this one. So what system will do? It will bring the data here. 5409, and from there it will move the data to work area final, and from there the data will comes to like this. So you come from here to here, again it is going to the loop. He is checking for, do we have any other sales order against the same 1000 customer? Do we have? No, right? In that case, now system will comes to the main looping. Now system will come to the main loop. It means here to get the next customer. Now what is the next customer? 1002. Sorry, 1001. The same data will be moved over here. 1001. Now, while fetching the, like when you are going to apply the loop on second internal table, always bring the data by bring the only those sales order belongs to the customer by comparing with this customer. So it means it will directly pick the fifth row, that is 6202 1001. So 6202 will comes here, and that is going to be appended. 1001 6202. Now again it will come back to the loop of VBAK, and he will check, do we have any other sales order against 1002? Yes, we do have. That is 5949. It will be combined over here. Again it will check in the IT underscore VBAK, do we have any sales order against 1001? No, right? Then it will comes to the main looping. Now this time it will pick the next customer, that is 1002. Okay, 1002. Now against 1002, first row, that will be combined in final, and from there it will comes here 1002 4167. Now again it will comes to the VBAK. He will check, do we have any other sales order against this? Yes, we do have. That is 9237. 9237. And this is your final data.